The Deputy Energy Minister, Nobuhle Nkabane, has addressed delegates at the 18th Annual Southern African Coal Conference in Cape Town. The conference brings together government officials, executives and industry experts to discuss changes in the Southern African export and domestic coal markets. Our reporter Heidi Giokos is in Cape Town, joins us now to give us an update from this conference. Heidi, good afternoon. It's very interesting that this conference on coal is happening just a few days before the African Mining Indaba that's set to begin in Cape Town on Monday. But what can we take away from what the Deputy Minister of Energy had to say?
Yes, I think it's crucial that these discussions are being had, especially given the fact that the mining indaba is set to take place next week. So these two conferences basically coincide with each other. The Deputy Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy was present today to address the delegates and those attending the coal conference. And I think top of the agenda and top of everybody's minds is what is South Africa doing to deal with the load shedding and the ongoing blackouts. And that was actually one of the first questions, Bradan, that was posed to the Deputy Minister as to what exactly is going to be done to deal with this, because this is an energy crisis, and as much as this is a coal conference, speaking about the availability of coal, but also how we deal with coal linked to the climate crisis that we are facing at the moment. The Deputy Minister seems to have promised delegates that they are going to be dealing with load shedding, and the current eNCA that's happening at the moment is addressing that very issue. The question was also as to whether or not delegates are accepting of the fact that a state of disaster could possibly be declared linked to the energy crisis. And what the Deputy Minister told delegates is that watch this space, because by the end of 2023 there will be no such thing as load shedding. And we've heard this promise time and time again that load shedding will be a thing of the past. I remember covering a briefing about 2 years ago when we were told that in the next 12 months there will be no load shedding, but that doesn't seem to be the case, and it seems to be getting worse and worse. Let's listen to what the Deputy Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy told delegates.
The cabinet eNCA is in session in Pretoria. So one of the major issues that they are deliberating on is around load shedding and how best they can respond to power crisis in South Africa. We're hoping that when the President is addressing to closing the eNCA, is going indeed to unpack some of the interventions that we are going to put in place to address the problem. I'm hoping that with your brains in the sector, us playing our meaningful role, and everyone, indeed, we are going to end this load shedding, as the President has already indicated.
So watch the space.
Yeah, watch the space. We're going to turn around the situation.
Good.
Well, Heidi, one would guess that some of the discussions around this coal, at this coal conference, will feed into next week's African Mining Indaba. But for us in South Africa, coal has a very central role to play in the energy crisis.
Yes, it certainly does. And what's interesting is that the Deputy Minister had indicated that the reason why the country is plunged into darkness, and we've been seeing the worst kind of load shedding that we've ever experienced, has nothing to do with coal availability or the exporting of coal. We do know that some protests have broken out in Richards Bay, where there seems to be a perception that the reason why we're sitting in darkness is because we export our A-grade coal. But the Deputy Minister is saying that's not necessarily the case. It's got to do with poor performing power stations and power plants, and that seems to be the problem. We were unfortunately not granted access to the coal conference when Eskom CEO Andrew de Ruyter was addressing delegates, but what we do understand is that he was speaking about just transition, and he was speaking about how that must not be neglected. We also got a chance to speak to the Deputy Director General of the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, that spoke about the fact that South Africans are starting to move away from the reliance of electricity supply from Eskom, and they are moving towards, for example, gas. And he says that that can definitely be used as a way into having electricity, for example, gas supply, when it comes to cooking and other sources of energy that can also be used that can alleviate the pressure of Eskom. It doesn't take away from the fact that Eskom is possibly failing at its #1 mandate, which is to keep the lights on and to provide reliable and consistent energy. That is not happening at this stage. So we'll just have to wait and see what is announced at this briefing that is expected at 4 o'clock, because South Africans are getting frustrated, people are losing their livelihoods, and to have the Deputy Minister address delegates at a coal conference to say load shedding will be a thing of the past by the end of this year, when we were told by the Eskom board chair Paul Makwana about a week or two ago that we'll be subjected to stage 2 or 3 load shedding for the next 2 years, is rather contradictory. So we'll just have to wait and see what comes out of all of these discussions, Bradan. But at the end of the day, South Africans need that reliable and consistent electricity supply.
Yeah, thank you, Heidi. By the way, just a moment of light relief. Cape Town has become more beautiful because you are the Heidi Giokos covering that coal conference.
Thank you so
much.
much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Heidi Giokos, the fellow anchor and a reporter from our studios in Cape Town.